personnel to do something about the other state workers who also haven't received any pay raises in a decade. And long story short, they didn't do anything. At the end of that 2 weeks, we decided rather than making the students suffer or moving graduation dates and things like that, that we would go back to work. We would finish up the school year. And many of us stepped up and decided to run for office during that period of time.
Well, it's disappointing that you didn't get the funding that you needed, but it's really exciting that we're seeing so many teachers in Oklahoma running for office now.
It is very exciting. There are teachers who've done it in the past. We had a small teacher caucus in the 2016 elections. We had a little bit of success with that, but this time around, I think we're going to see a very large number of teachers be elected. Several of them are the front runners in their races, and I think we're going to see some big change.
Speaking of that change, can you tell us a little bit sort of about what you plan to do if elected for education? What are your ideas? Is it mainly just increasing funding for education, or are there other ideas that you have?
Well, there are two major ideas. Funding is, of course, paramount. We have to restore some tax cuts that the current legislature put into place over the last few years that have done nothing but damage not only education, but every public service that the state offers. And so we have to restore those tax cuts. We have to get our funding back up to adequate levels so that we can pay for things in the state. As far as educational reform, there is a lot of questions in the state about accountability. And so, we have, of course, as many states are dealing right now, we're dealing with over-testing. We're dealing with massive amounts of stress put on the students. So rather than letting them be in a place where they can discover and learn, they're in a place where they're being trained to be test takers to perform. And so I think we'd like to see a lot of that movement go away. I think we'd like to take school back to the time when students could learn and explore and discover. And I would also like to see some more local control in school districts so that schools can offer programs that meet the needs of their particular communities, rather than everyone fitting one single mold of performance of one single curriculum that doesn't necessarily fit the future that community needs or what that student wants. Now, having said that, we have to have standards. There are certain skills that everyone should walk out of high school with, but at the same time, not every kid needs to have college pounded into their head day in and day out. That if you don't go to college, you're a failure. We have a massive dearth of people going into the technical professions. Plumbers, electricians, any sort of technician like that. And so we need to look at expanding those programs, bringing back real vocational education into the high schools so that students can be prepared for a variety of different careers.
Can you tell us a little bit about House District 23 in Oklahoma? Sort of where is it located? What's it like demographically?
Our demographics are pretty interesting. We're probably the most diverse district in our area. We are in far eastern Tulsa, so Tulsa County and the city of Tulsa. We're on the far eastern part of the city, and then we also extend into two adjacent counties, Rogers County and Wagner County. In Tulsa, we have dense neighborhoods and apartment complexes filled with a variety of people from all sorts of different backgrounds, a large immigrant population, both from Mexico and countries south. We also have a large Vietnamese and Hmong population that have been here since the 70s. We have a lot of blue-collar folks who've worked for the airlines and things like that used to be centered here. And then when we move into Rogers County and Wagner County, we get into some more, although we have some very upscale neighborhoods out there, we also get into some more rural populations. And so I go from high-density Section 8 apartment complexes to $500,000 homes sitting above some of the fanciest real estate in the area to, huge ranches out on the eastern half of our district. So a very, very wide array of demographics. So a lot of different needs, a lot of different concerns in House District 23.
What are some of those concerns? We've talked a lot about education, but what are some of the issues that voters are talking to you about?
Employment is a massive issue. Employment and good employment. We have had growth out here. The Cherokee Nation, I have both the Cherokee and Creek Indian nations that have land in our area. And one of the big things out here is the Cherokee Casino. It's a hard rock casino. They have a musical venue. It's just a huge growing entertainment complex in the middle of the district. We have new retail coming in. There's an Amazon fulfillment center that will be coming in the next year or two. So we have development out here, but this problem is that so many of the places coming in are still not paying a good living wage. I go out and knock neighborhoods, and it feels like every 10th house either is abandoned or has a sheriff's eviction notice on the door. We have some of the highest foreclosure rates in the country here in Tulsa, and especially out here in East Tulsa, we're seeing that. So people are very, very concerned about living wages, thriving wages, the kind of wages that built these communities back in the 60s and 70s. And so we want to see a return to that. We want to see a cultural center out here. We want to see things that will keep our young people here. Right now, in terms of the population of the state of Oklahoma, if we didn't have the large immigrant population coming into us, we would be losing our population. The city of Tulsa would be declining. Our young people are not staying. Right now, what it is Oklahoma, Tulsa is a good place to be from. We want to turn that back into a good place to be. We want to bring the state up. We have the 30th, I believe our gross domestic product is 30th in the nation. So we actually have a lot of money flowing through the state. We have a little over 1% of the U.S. population. We should see a lot of people with a lot more money than they have. We should see a lot of people living very full, rich lives because they have the resources to live those lives. And instead, we see people struggling daily to make ends meet. One of our big fights in the walkout was for teacher pay. I am basically, I think I'm in my 19th year in the classroom. I get a couple of extra steps on our pay scale, if you understand how those work. A couple extra steps on our pay scale because of my military background. So at step 23 with a master's degree, even on the old pay scale, I was making just a little under $50,000 a year, which put me at the median household income for our state. So your average family of four was making what I made as just one person in the family.
Oh, man.
So we have massive wage disparity in the state, and we need to fix that. We need to fix that. People need to be able to make a living and create a good life for their families here. And right now they can't.
Something we're hearing from a lot of candidates all over the country, that although we're told that the recession is over and unemployment is down and we should all be happy, that so many people are not making a living wage, that they're working harder and making less money across the country. That's that's an interesting thing that so many candidates have been reporting that as well.
It is nationwide right now that we are seeing that trend, and it's the way our politics have been going lately, or the way our economy has been going lately. The people at the top, the people who run the companies are doing amazingly well. The people who work down at the bottom tiers of those companies, who work in the communities, they're not doing well. They're struggling to get by. And this is America. It's the land of opportunity. If someone wants to get rich, great. We want them to get rich. We want people to be successful, but that success should not come at the price of everyone else failing.
The New Yorker wrote an article in which they profiled you, and the title of that article was "The Teacher Strike and the Democratic Revival in Oklahoma." Tell me a little bit about the Democratic Revival in Oklahoma. Are you seeing a different energy among Democrats in Oklahoma? Are you seeing a different sort of progressive bent? What is it like on the ground there?
Well, I think on the ground, I think Oklahoma has always been more progressive than it looks like when the national media pops up our red on the screen during the presidential elections. Oklahoma was founded with progressive ideals. We have, when you read our Constitution, we have one of the most progressive constitutions ever written. It gives massive amounts of power to the people. And so on the ground, when we talk to people, when we're out there knocking doors, we see that people want things that progressives are traditionally associated with. They still have a strong conservative bent in terms of, well, in terms of how they view religion and how they view some social issues. But by and large, I think people want to be left alone, they want to leave their neighbor alone, and they want to live a happy life. We are seeing, in terms of the Democratic Party here in the state, we are seeing a massive revival. When I go to especially the county meetings in Rogers County and in Wagner County, when I go to their monthly meetings, those are groups that 2 years ago, 4 years ago, had maybe 3 or 4 people showing up to the meetings. So just those stalwart folks who were holding on and keeping it alive. And you go to those meetings now, and it's standing room only sometimes. People are involved. People are engaged. People have realized that they can't give up, that they can't sit back and let other people make their decisions. And so we are seeing that revival that the New Yorker talked about. And I think it's going to come out to play in these elections, both August 28th, when we have our runoff elections, and in November. I think we're going to see much, much larger numbers of people come out to vote than what the traditionalists would say we would see.
That's really exciting. We've been hearing, like I said before, we've been hearing something similar again across the country from states that I think people would identify as redder states. Particularly in the Midwest and in the South, we've been hearing a lot about sort of a progressive revival, a Democratic revival. So that's really good to hear.
Well, one of the telling issues in our state is one of the factors that affected our large voter turnout on the June 26th primaries was State Question 788, which was medical marijuana. And Oklahoma approved that 57% to 43%. And when you sit down and look at the numbers, based on the number of voters who came out, a large number of Republicans voted for medical marijuana, and that would typically be viewed as purely a progressive side issue. But this is a situation where everyone's like, no, we need this. We need this in our state. Everyone is seeing people suffer. Everyone is seeing the benefits that medical marijuana offers. And, of course, the opioid crisis is just as prevalent here as it is elsewhere in the nation. So you're seeing people step up and say, you know what, we can cross the aisle for this issue, or this issue doesn't belong on one side of the aisle, or be a better way to phrase that. They've realized that these are issues that we can all come together on. And I'm knocking the doors and talking with the Republican voters. That's where we're going. We can work together. We can find common ground because this is our state. We all love our state. We all want to stay in our state, and we want our children to stay here too.
Do you feel like people react really positively when they find out that you're a teacher? Do you feel like that sort of gives you an extra oomph in the mind of the voters?
Yes. Overall, I would say yes. I get a lot of. I've had many people tell me that yes, I'm voting for the teacher. I'm voting for you because you're the teacher, and they don't care what party I'm from. And so that's been good. I've also had people on exactly the opposite side. They've told me they're not going to vote for me because I am a teacher, because they don't view the walkout positively. And so that's there also. And so those are just people that we're going to have to spend more time talking with and finding out what it is that they perceive about us and what it is that we need to do to serve them better.
That's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about how the walkout has been perceived in general in Oklahoma? Because here in Wisconsin, it's been perceived very positively. So I'm just wondering. Overall,
I would say it was a very positive view. Especially, I was just talking about this earlier today, but during the march itself, as we were walking down the roadside of Route 66, and we would have people pull up next to us and roll down their windows and yell at us to not stop. to keep going, to keep fighting for the state, to keep fighting for what not only we as teachers deserve, but what the children